So in the chapter 12, we will see these topics. Verses 1 to 3, Shaunaka Rishi is going to inquire from Suta Goswami so that he can come back to the topic of Parikshit Maharaj. First he says, we understood, as you mentioned in chapter 8, that Parikshit Maharaj was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. But can you explain how was he saved? Like, can you give us more details about his birth, about his activities, about Parikshit Maharaj's death and his destination? So please elaborate on this topic. So Suta Goswami comes back to his consciousness in the sense of wanting to speak about Parikshit Maharaj. So he begins with Yudhishthira Maharaj's rule. He explains Yudhishthira Maharaj's rule in terms of his qualities, how he administered the citizens, what were his opulences, and what was his mood of doing that. So his qualities, he says, he administered the citizens like a father. He was very generous and pleasing, and due to his devotion to Krishna, he had no desires for personal sense gratification in the discharge of his duty. And his opulences, specifically his wealth, his fame, and the sacrifices that he performed, were so famous that the fame of Yudhishthira Maharaj and his sacrifices, fame, it was going on even to reaching, news was reaching even the higher planets. However, even though he was having a kingdom which was even desired by the demigods, he was completely detached because of his complete devotion to Krishna. So after explaining Yudhishthira Maharaj's rule, Suta Goswami begins the topic of Krishna saving Parikshit Maharaj. Already the background was described in the chapter 7, the son of Drona punished. And then the 8th chapter, what did Ashwatthama do? So now he is just directly describing how did Lord save Parikshit Maharaj. So in the verse 7, he says, Parikshit Maharaj, while suffering from the heat of while this while suffering from the heat of the Brahmastra, he was he saw the Supreme Lord in his mother's womb. And then the Lord's features are also described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Api angushta matram amalam spurat purata maudnam api vidarshanam shamam tadit vasasam achyutam. So the Lord is described as angushta matram amalam. The Lord was just the size of a thumb. And then he had 4 hands, and then he had a golden helmet, he had earrings, his eyes were red with anger because of Ashwatthama, and he was wearing a yellow gold lightning like a dhoti. So in this way he could see the Supreme Lord's form, and Parikshit was wondering who's this Lord, like who's like here, and then he's seeing that the Lord is vanquishing the heat that he was experiencing. The cloud was swirling around, and with his personal presence, he was just reducing or completely dispelled the heat that was created by Brahmastra. And when Parikshit was thinking, who is this personality that he is here? The Lord finished his duty and disappeared from there. And after this, directly Suta Goswami goes, this after explaining how Krishna saved Parikshit Maharaj, he explains the various ceremonies that were performed during Maharaj Parikshit's birth by Yudhishthira Maharaj. And after being saved by Krishna, Parikshit Maharaj took his time. So when the favorable zodiac signs were there, Parikshit Maharaj was born. And Yudhishthira Maharaj had brahmanas such as his guru like Dhaumya and Kripacharya performed the birth rites and rituals for auspiciousness. And also Yudhishthira Maharaj gave in charity to the brahmanas very profusely. And he also asked about the child's future to those brahmins that we will see in the next slide. So Yudhishthira Maharaj asked about Chal Parikshit's future. How will he be doing? What will be his future? So the Brahmins explain how Parikshit Maharaj will also be called as Vishnurata, one who is saved by Vishnu. Tasman namna Vishnurata Triloke Bhavishyati. Na sandeho Mahabhagavato Mahan. Don't have any doubt that he is a great soul. He is really Mahabhagavato Mahan. He is a great devotee. He is a first class devotee with all good qualities. That's what the Brahmins say. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj says, okay, he will be a great devotee. Will he be saintly and famous as others, as kings? Will he be famous and saintly as others in this dynasty? Will he be another Rajarishi to continue the line of Pandu? And the Brahmins explain the different qualities of Parikshit Maharaj. He says, these are the qualities that will be displayed by Parikshit Maharaj in the future. They say that he will maintain citizens like King Shwaku. He'll be following Dharma strictly like Lord Ram, and he will be offering charity like King Shivi. And the name and fame of Parikshit Maharaj will be like the name and fame of King Bharata, son of Shakuntala. And he'll be such a great bowman like his grandfather Arjuna, and he will be irresistible like fire, and he'll be unsurpassable like ocean. He'll be strong like lion, and he'll be giving shelter. In giving shelter, he'll be like Himalayas. His forbearance will be like earth. He will be tolerating as one's parents tolerate once. In his equanimity of mind, he will be as good as Brahmaji or Yudhishthir Maharaj. And in his munificence, in his being generous or being pleased, he will be like Lord Shiva. And giving shelter, he will be like Lord Narayan. He will be the resort of all people. By following Lord Krishna very strictly, he will have qualities as good as Lord Krishna. And he will be magnanimous like Ranti Dev, and he will follow religious principles like King Ayati. In his patience, he will be like Bali Maharaj, and in being a staunch devotee, he will be like Prahlad Maharaj. So, in this way, they glorify the qualities that Parikshit Maharaj will manifest in the future. And after that, they also explain how he will be father of great Rajarishis and chastiser of upstarts in the age of Kali. He will be chastising anyone who's creating mischief in this age of Kali. And he will become also detached by hearing about his death in 7 days by Takshaka, and he will renounce his kingdom, and he will go to the banks of the Ganges and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the lotus lips of Srila Shukadeva Goswami. So after explaining all this about his life, the Brahmins depart after being well remunerated by Yudhishthir Maharaj. So in this way they predict the future of Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj grows under the care of his grandfathers, 5 grandfathers. And Parikshit Maharaj is also called so because he was constantly examining who is this personality who actually I saw in the womb of my mother. Because after that, before Parikshit Maharaj took birth, Krishna actually went back to Dwarka. So he wasn't having immediate audience of Krishna. So he was always looking at people. Is this the person that I saw in the womb of my mother? So that's why his name became Parikshit. And Yudhishthira Maharaj also desired to perform Ashwamedha Yajna when Parikshit Maharaj was growing up, because he thought that is a good way to absolve the sins that one accrues through fighting. So but there was a problem of finance because they had a huge war, so their finances were not enough for performing Ashwamedha Yajna. So his brothers collected necessary from Maruta's kingdom, and Yudhishthira Maharaj performed not 1 but 3 Ashwamedha sacrifices. And Krishna was invited for this, so he also came and made sure that all these sacrifices are performed by qualified priests. And Krishna also stayed for a few more months to please his relatives, and then again bade farewell and left for Dwarka. So in this way, this chapter concludes explaining how Krishna saved Parikshit Maharaj in his womb, Angushtamatram Amalam, Kadit Vasasam. Like he is like seen as a small thumb-like figure in the womb of his mother by Parikshit Maharaj, and when he was wandering, he disappears, and then his qualities are foreseen by the Brahmins, and then Yudhishthir Maharaj performs the yajnas. So in this way, Parikshit Maharaj is growing up. So the next chapter is Dhritarashtra quits home. So next chapter that we will see is about how Dhritarashtra left the kingdom. So one question. Yes, bro.
Prabhuji, one question on chapter 12.
Yes.
Say Krishna is coming from Dwarka. So previous class we saw that Krishna went back to Dwarka. So he specifically came back for the Ashwamedha Yajna?
Yeah. If we read closely, these chapters are not exactly so much in chronological order. It is all little back and forth because Suta Goswami is speaking not in terms of chronology. He's just speaking in terms of those topics that he is inspired. So suddenly he remembers about what Hastinapur Vasis are saying. Krishna was coming back and forth many times. So one time that when he was leaving Hastinapur, ladies were glorifying, so that he recounts. And once Krishna was going, what happened in Dwarka? That's what he is explaining. But Krishna surely went back and forth a few times because he didn't stay. If you read closely uh, in the 8th chapter, before Parikshit Maharaj's part comes up, that Uttara cries and runs to Lord Krishna, Suta Goswami will say about Yudhishthira Maharaj's rule, and he will say that Yudhishthira Maharaj performed 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas. So in one of the commentaries it is said actually at that point the Ashwamedha Yagya was not performed because they had just performed a funeral for their relatives, and Bhishma Dev was not yet even passed away. So there was no time, they haven't performed. But Suta Goswami in a futuristic tense he is meaning by that he has as if he has already performed. So in this way the storyline is not exactly chronologically mentioned. He just speaks out of inspiration. So that's why you cannot understand the story flow of Mahabharata from Bhagavatam because it's mainly based on Krishna and whatever questions being asked.
Okay, Prabhu.
So then also we may think, why is this Dhritarashtra quits home is suddenly here? What is the connection between the topic? So now that Suta Goswami has explained about birth of Parikshit Maharaj, now he has to speak about he becoming king. But what are the reasons that he became king? Why did Yudhishthira Maharaj left the kingdom? So that's what we are going to see now in chapter 13, 14 and 15. We will see events that lead to Parikshit Maharaj becoming the king. So once he becomes the king, then in 16, 17 chapters, a little bit in the 18th chapter also, we will see what are his activities as the king. And then what happened that he had to leave the kingdom, renounce the kingdom, and what happened, why he had to die in 7 days, and how did he meet Shukadeva Goswami, that we will see in the 18, 19 chapters. So this is the connection. The 13, 14, 15, we will see what is the reason for Parikshit Maharaj becoming a king? What are those events that led to him becoming a king? So the first thing is Vidura is actually returning back to Hastinapur because he was not part of the Kurukshetra war. He had left well before that. And he came mainly to show compassion to Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura leave home. And Narada Muni consoles Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is aggrieved that his uncles and aunt has left home. So Vidura returns after taking lessons from Maitreya Rishi, Maitreya Muni. And as soon as they all see Vidura back at Hastinapur, all the residents feel as if they have regained their consciousness. And it's such an emotional moment because they have been separated for such a long time. And when Vidura was not there, so much has happened in Hastinapur. So many people have died. So many things have happened. The whole war has completely changed the picture of the kingdom. So in this way, there is so much changes that has happened. So everybody is feeling emotional that Vidura is finally back. So they make him sit and they give him a nice reception. They feed him well, let him rest, and then once they make him comfortably sit and then they talk. And Yudhishthira Maharaj converses with Vidura. Basically, Yudhishthira Maharaj feels so much gratitude for Vidura because Vidura is the one who protected the Pandavas so many times from the hands of the atrocities done by Kauravas. He protected them mainly in the Varanavat episode, and then he is the one who speaks against when Draupadi is being insulted in the Sabha. So in this way, Vidura always stood by the Pandavas. So he shows that gratitude, Yudhishthira Maharaj, and then he inquires about Vidura's travels so far, and he also asks what are the different holy places he visited, and in turn he glorifies Vidura with this famous verse. भवद्विदा भागवतास्तीर्थभूतः स्वयं विभो तीर्थि कुर्वन्ति तीर्थानि स्वान्तस्तेन गदावृता. This is how great people like Vidura, they carry the Supreme Lord in their heart. Swantastena Gadavrita. They actually have the Supreme Lord in their hearts manifested. So when they go to holy places, they actually purify the holy places of the sins that is being deposited by general populace. So in this way, he glorifies Vidura and inquires about Dwarkavasis because he comes to know by Vidura's answer that he also visited Dwarka. So he asked about Dwarkavasis. So Vidura explains everything about Dwarkavasis and answers his questions tactfully without revealing any information of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. We will see that in the next chapter. And then Vidura's purpose for staying in Hastinapur was mainly to bring Dhritarashtra to his senses. He actually stayed for the benefit of Dhritarashtra, otherwise he had no interest staying there. He stayed for a while just for the benefit of Dhritarashtra. And this particular section also recounts why Vidura actually came down, uh, being Vidura. He is originally Yamaraj, but because of a curse by Manduka Muni, he becomes Vidura, takes birth as a Shudra. And Yudhishthira Maharaj actually is ruling peacefully, but then Vidura, he stayed for a while, so he starts speaking to Dhritarashtra. He says actually, people who are very attached, they cannot understand the power of time, how imperceptibly, without their knowledge, actually time overcomes them. So we don't understand that. So with this topic, he says, he starts speaking to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, actually, you have lived enough. It's time for you to get out of the home immediately. He says you are fearing death. You are actually completely fearful of death, but you cannot avoid death. Let's face the reality. He says death forces everyone to surrender. Not just everyone, it forces everyone to surrender everything, including one's own body. So in this way, you have to just give up everything that you think it is yours at the time of death. So get ready for it. You see, all your relatives have died, and you have visible symptoms of old age. Still, you don't think that death is going to come to you. Still, why do you have this strong urge to continue to live? And how are you living? You are living out of the expense of the same people whom you tried to kill earlier. Because it is so shameful that you're living out of the food given by Bhima, whom once you tried to kill. So in this way, you're actually living a very degraded life. So don't be a kripana, don't be a miser, don't be unwilling to die. It is going to come. So rather get ready, have a honorable death. It's anyway approaching you. Just don't live at the cost of others. It is not at all honorable, and you're just living out of your own honor. And he says, become a dhira. Dhira is one who becomes fearless of death. He says you can even become a Narottam. You can completely become renounced from everything material and become attached to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Lord Hari. But I understand because you committed so many offenses to Pandavas, you don't have that inclination. So at least become a Dhira. If you cannot become a Narottam, a devotee of Krishna, at least become a Dhira. So you become detached from material things, focus on the self, achieve at least self-realization, become a Dhira, he says. So he recommends him to perform Ashtanga Yoga for self-realization. And in this way, he convinces Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra finally comes to his senses because Vidura was always giving good sense to Dhritarashtra from the beginning. From the time of Duryodhana's birth, he has been telling what is good. And he said, if you won't control Duryodhana, your whole family will be killed. All your sons will be killed because of this one person. So still Dhritarashtra didn't hear, but he is now experienced all that Vidura has said has come to true. So now he has faith in Vidura. He always had affection, but his affection for Duryodhana was much more. His attachment to him was much more. That is why he was not respecting Vidura. But now he understands everything, so his mind is changed by Vidura. So he finally decides to leave home and then takes the step to leave out of the palace of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Gandhari, being a very chaste wife, follows Dhritarashtra in his vow to achieve self-realization. And after they leave, Yudhishthira Maharaj, as usual, comes every day morning to take blessings from his uncle and aunt. So when he comes and then he realizes they are not here. So he asks Sanjaya, and he fears that they have left because the place looks like they have left it. So he says, I'm so ungrateful that I couldn't take care of my uncle and aunt so properly. I couldn't treat them as a son. I know that they lost all their sons, so we couldn't take care of them properly. I think that is why they have left. So he asked Sanjay, what happened to them? Where are you? Did they actually leave? He is fearful. Sanjay responds, Yudhishthira Maharaj saying, yes, those great souls actually cheated us. Without telling anyone, they have just left this palace. So Yudhishthira Maharaj becomes very morose, very guilty that maybe it is because of me improperly handling or not properly giving respect and love and affection to them. That is why they have left the palace. So he feels I'm the reason for the elders of the family having to go through this. So he's very morose and is very sulking. At that time, Narada Muni comes and Yudhishthira Maharaj asks him, do you actually know Narada Muni? Because you travel all over the place, you constantly move around your Trikalagya. So do you know where my uncles and aunt have gone? Do you have any information? So Narada Muni actually knows, but before explaining that, he understands the mental situation of Yudhishthira Maharaj and wants to convince him that there is no need for lamenting. He says, "Oh, you know that everybody is under the Lord's control?" He says, "Everyone, including the great demigods, everybody follows the rules of the Supreme Lord, like a cow bound with a rope uh, follows the stays within the boundary. So don't lamentation is due to illusory affection for one's bodily attachment. So give up your anxiety. You need not have anxiety because he says you think you can protect your uncle and aunt, but nobody can protect anyone else in this world. Why? Because he says Kala karma gunadino deho ayam panchabhautikaha katam manyam stu gopayet sarpagrasto yataparam. Everyone in this material world is being swallowed by the snake of time. So if one is already being swallowed by the snake of time, one is already under the control of time. How is that person going to protect someone else? So in this way, don't think you can protect your uncle and aunt. It is actually the Supreme Lord Krishna who protects anyone and everyone in this world. He says it is only by the mercy of Krishna sometimes people save us and sometimes people kill us. So it is all under Krishna's plan. So he says it is the law of existence that someone is weak is being killed by someone who is strong. He says that is the nature of existence. Death is the law of existence. Ahastani sahastana mapadani chatushpadam palguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. This famous verse jivo jivasya jivanam is being told by Narada Muni in this context that the law of existence is that one dies. The strong kills the weak. So in this way, it is the design of the nature that one has to go through this. So now you focus on the Supreme Lord. You don't need to worry about your aunts and uncle. They're taken care. Understand now, instead of worrying about what is happening, understand the Supreme Lord's mission. Why is he here? What is this? What is this plan? You understand that? He says, the Supreme Lord came here to the for the sake of destroying the demons, and he's saying now that is being actually achieved, that is already being achieved, and Krishna is almost completing his duties in this material world, and there is a chance that after the few remaining things he will also go back to the spiritual world. And he indirectly hints to Yudhishthira Maharaj, says, "You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on the earth." That means as soon as He leaves, you can also leave. So it is time for you to leave, and you are worrying about your uncle why they have left. It's time for them also. So don't think that you can continue to take care of them. It is time for the Supreme Lord to wind up His mission, and you also can wind up after he leaves back from this planet. So don't worry why you're now to why Dhritarashtra and his wife they are winding up. You also have to soon do that. So and then he also gives the whereabouts of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra to Yudhishthira Maharaj to pacify him, because Yudhishthira Maharaj's concern is also very true. Dhritarashtra is blind, so just to leave home, and then that he is also blindfolded. So in this way, it's very difficult how they will live on their own. So but Narada Muni says they have already reached the Saptashrota in the range of Himalayas, which is it is in Haridwar exactly speaking. That is the place where the Ganges divides it itself into seven tributaries or seven parts for the pleasing the seven rishis, Sapta rishis. That's why it's called Saptashrota. And he says there Dhritarashtra is performing Ashtanga Yoga. In 5 days from now, he will achieve Brahman realization. And so now that Yudhishthira is thinking, okay, I'll go and bring them back. He says, no, He will be achieving Brahman realization and he will be leaving his body. You don't need to go and disturb his plan. Oh, if he's leaving body, then I need to go and collect his body and bring back for cremation. He says, no need. He will be setting his body up in flame. He will be just setting his body into to blaze by his yogic potency. So you don't need to worry about cremating his body. So then he feels, oh, what about Gandhari? If Dhritarashtra sets his body ablaze, what about Gandhari? At least she will need help. We need to bring her back. No, she will not be there when we go because she will be entering Sati with Dhritarashtra. She will just follow her husband and reach the same destination. In this way, you don't need to worry. So Yudhishthira Maharaj may think, okay, then what about Vidura? It's Dhritarashtra and Gandhari is doing this. What about Vidura? He says, Vidura has not gone there. Vidura has gone on a pilgrimage. And he says, Vidura will leave, is gone on a pilgrimage. You don't need to worry about Vidura too. Then Narada Muni consoles in this way Yudhishthira Maharaj's lamentation and departs. Now that Yudhishthira Maharaj understood the plan of the Lord and the destination of his uncles and aunt, so he is free from lamentation. So now we saw how Parikshit Maharaj took birth, and first thing was Vidura, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, they are leaving home. So now next is Krishna will be winding up his plan. So that is what Narada Muni gave the hint in the 13th chapter. So we will have to see 2 more chapters. Okay. This chapter describes about the disappearance of Lord Krishna. That actually doesn't come in this chapter. It's only the clue that comes actually in the next chapter. Yudhishthira Maharaj sees bad omens and then fears because Narada Muni has given a hint that Lord is going to wind up his pastimes soon. So from that time, he is able to see so many bad omens and then he connects them. Maybe this is because of that and he fears. And Arjuna in this chapter had actually gone to Dwarka to meet Krishna, to know about what more his plans are, and he hasn't seen Krishna from a long time. See, he goes to Dwarka. If you see here, in the 13th chapter, in the 12th chapter, if you read the thing, there it will be said after the Ashwamedha Yagya is over, Krishna departs to Dwarka along with Arjuna and the Yadus. And in the 14th chapter, you will see Arjuna is going to Dwarka. So the story of Mahabharata is not revealed here. It's only the topics which are relevant for the answers that is being relevant. So it means there are so many years have passed now after the Ashwamedha Yagya. So many years have passed and then Vidura is coming. And after Vidura goes, it is in this period, Arjuna has gone to Dwarka to meet. So that means after so many years, these things are like every chapter is like in a different time span. In between details are not revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Arjuna actually goes to Dwarka and doesn't return from Dwarka for 7 months. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is wondering, what is he doing there? And Yudhishthira Maharaj is, when he is thinking about all these bad omens and worrying why Arjuna has not come back, Arjuna actually comes back. And then he asks about different Yadus and he inquires about Krishna. So this chapter ends with Yudhishthira Maharaj's questions. And in the next chapter, Arjun will answer what happened in Dwarka and why he was delayed. So does anyone want to ask any question at this point?
Prabhu,
Yes.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
So Prabhuji, like you mentioned, Vidura is actually Yamraj. He's coming here, so he has a history.
Yes.
Is like out of curiosity, does Dhritarashtra also have any history?
Nothing is at least mentioned. Not necessary. Everybody, because here Vidura is like a demigod. He has a history. Dhritarashtra's history somewhere I have read. I'm not sure of a source that he was a person who had to wait for so many births to have the pious credits to have 100 cents. Because in
That story where he killed some birds.
He's like a normal person in the flow of life. He is in that position. I have not read any authoritative references of his previous lives. Not necessarily everyone in the Leela has to have a background story because they are not always necessarily a special devotee coming or anything like that.
Okay, Prabhu. And Prabhuji, so Vidura met Maitreya and discussed. In Bhagavatam's later canto, at least I'm
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
fourth canto,
Yes.
Maitreya is actually telling everything to Vaidura. Is it like
Yes.
Shukdev Goswami just repeated all that thing to Parikshit Maharaj, what Maitreya told to Vidura?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a conversation inside a conversation. Later it comes. He asked certain questions, which is also Yudhishthir had asked those questions to Maitreya Rishi. So that is being recounted. The major part of third canto, fourth canto will all be like Vidura Maitreya Samvad.
Okay, and that's what covered by Shukdev Goswami, and that is
There was one,
again
yeah.
covered by Sutta
Yeah.
Goswami.
So yes. It's all
Okay.
like a loop inside a loop kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Here in this chapter now, Yudhishthira Maharaj will see various suspicious bad omens. And he also worries like that Arjuna has gone for so long to know Krishna's plan that he hasn't returned back, and he sees various inauspicious omens. If you see the inauspicious omens, they are very interesting. You won't even see what is wrong with those at today's time and age. If you see those things, okay, it's normal. But for Yamaraj, for Yudhishthira Maharaj, it was very odd. He saw irregularities in season. He saw change of times, and he saw people becoming greedy, deceitful, adopting false means of livelihood, and he saw deceptive dealings filled with deception, and friendships are like having mixed with cheating, and you also see strained family relationships or strained and quarreling amongst family members. So these are the things that he observed, and then he thought these are bad omens. It sounds like very very normal in Kali Yuga. So that is the status of life when in the past. So he sees various, and then he speaks to Bhima that all these, I'm seeing all these bad omens, and Arjuna has not yet come back, and Narada Muni has told me that the Lord is going to quit the planet. So I'm wondering, is that happened or something like that? He's like worrying. He's not able to clearly say that because it's so emotionally draining to think like that. And he sees in various ways. He sees bad omens in his body. Different animals are showing that, birds, in the five material elements, in the cattle, deities, and different places. Everywhere he is like he's seeing all these bad omens. So he's worried. And at that point, when he is thinking like, does these omens indicate a great loss? Is it that the Supreme Lord has disappeared? Is that is the reason for all these signs suddenly? So when Yudhishthira Maharaj was contemplating on these ill omens, Arjuna returns. Arjuna returns, but Arjuna seems so dejected, so morose, and he's grieving like never that before. That Yudhishthira Maharaj has never seen Arjuna like that, and his head is down, and then his tears flowing down his eyes, and he's totally heartbroken. Yudhishthira Maharaj has never seen Arjuna like this, so he's like, what happened? Like, why is Arjuna so morose? So Yudhishthira Maharaj inquires from him because Arjuna is very pale and anxious. So Yudhishthira Maharaj starts to question Arjuna. So those questions we will see now from verses 25 to 33. So Yudhishthira Maharaj clearly wants to ask him, did Krishna leave this world? Is that is the reason for your moroseness? But he is such a devotee, he couldn't just ask that question because he was thinking, how can I ask that? How can I even ask or say that did Krishna leave this planet? How can I even uh, ask that? Because his heart is so pained even to ask that question. So he indirectly is going to come to that part. So he starts somewhere. He says, is the Edu family passing their days in happiness in Dwarka? So he's asking in general. Arjuna didn't say anything. He asked, how is Surasen, how is Vasudev, how is his brothers, are they all doing well? Arjuna doesn't say anything. And how are our aunts, Devaki and the other wives of Vasudev, their sons, daughter-in-laws, are they all happy living comfortably in Dwarka? How is Ugrasena, Hridika, Kritavarma, Akrura, Jayanta, Gada, Sharana, Shatrujit, are all they doing happy? How is Balramji, by the way? Is the Supreme Lord Balramji, is he not faring well? And he says, how is Pradyumna, Aniruddha, how are they doing? How are sons of Krishna and his grandsons, the sons of Krishna, are they all doing well? How is Shrutadev, Uddhava, Nanda, Sunanda, how are they doing? So in this way, he asked all these questions to Yudhishthira Maharaj, but sorry, to Arjuna. And Arjuna is immediately not answering anything. So Yudhishthira Maharaj continues to now. He has asked so many people, but he hasn't asked about Krishna. So he's finally coming to ask about Krishna. Before that, he is glorifying Krishna. He's saying, Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyam bhaktavatsalah kachit pure sudharmayam sukam maaste suhuru durata. How is that Supreme Lord doing? In the Sudharma hall, he is enjoying life. So is Krishna and Balram, they actually stay in this world for the welfare, protection, and progress of the entire universe. And queens of Krishna, they are always serving him. That is their main activity. The great heroes of Yadu dynasty, they are all protected by Krishna, completely fearless. They were so fearless, they went and fought with the demigods and brought the Sudharma hall to Dwarka. And the queens of Krishna, they induced Krishna to defeat the demigods, and they received gifts like Parijata tree. So in this way, they were all always protected by Krishna. So Arjuna doesn't say anything. So now Yudhishthira Maharaj asks, okay, you're not saying anything about what happened in Dwaraka. What are you okay? Like, is there anything personally wrong with you? Is your health fine? I see your body has lost its luster. Is there anything problem with your health? Did anyone disrespect you or neglect you in Dwaraka because you stayed for a long time? Or did anyone address you with unfriendly words or threatened you for about your life? Or you promise someone to give some charity and you fail to give the charity, that's why you're feeling so morose? Or somebody came to take shelter of you who's a deserving candidate like a woman, child, or old man, and you couldn't protect them? Is that is the reason for your moroseness? Or you came in contact with a bad association, or you mistreated a deserving woman, respectable woman? Did you mistreat that respectable woman? Or you were defeated in fight by your equals or your juniors? So what is the problem? Is it a health problem? Is it a professional hurt? Or is it like a character problem? What is the reason for your moroseness? He says, did you enjoy the food without feeding others? As a grihastha, you're supposed to feed other people who are in need. Did you just enjoy yourself? That's the reason. Or did you commit any unpardonable mistake? I'm not able to think anything beyond this. Did you commit any unpardonable, unforgivable mistake that you're lamenting so much? What is the reason? Please tell Arjun. And he doesn't answer anything. So finally, now Yudhishthira Maharaj, only one thing is left for him to ask Arjuna, and he is not able to ask that directly. So such a sensitive, emotional thing it is to ask directly about Krishna like that. So he asks indirectly, did you lose your most intimate friend? Arjuna, I cannot think of anything else for any other reason someone can grieve like this. So is that is the reason that you're grieving so much that I have never seen you before like this? So in this way, the 14th chapter comes to a conclusion. So now Arjuna will answer the questions of Yudhishthira Maharaj. So Arjuna says, remembers Krishna by all these questions by Yudhishthira Maharaj. He doesn't answer immediately. He says he feels such separation. His mouth and heart is dried up, and he could hardly speak. His tears were continuously flowing from his eyes. With great difficulty, he checks his tears, and remembering Krishna's friendship, he is overwhelmed and begins to speak. He says, "Vanchito aham Maharaja Harina Bandhu Rupina ename apahrutam tejo deva vismapanam maham." He says, I've been cheated, my Maharaj. I've been cheated by my friend Harina Bandhurupina, the Supreme Lord Hari, who was my friend. I have been cheated by him. He had just left us. So separation of whom for a moment also would render these universes void. That person is not there today with us. That is why we are experiencing so much uh, agony of heart. So in this way, and at this point, he recalls so many favors that Krishna did to Arjuna. He says, I could only by his mercy I could win the hand of Draupadi by piercing the fish target and vanquishing so many lusty princes who had assembled to take the hand of Draupadi. And it's only by the mercy of Krishna that I even defeated Indra and other demigods, so that I could offer the Kandava forest to Agni Dev, and in that way I could satisfy Agni Dev, and I also saved Mayadanav and got this great gift of assembly hall built by Mayadanav. So it was all only by Krishna's mercy. And not only me, even Bhima could defeat Jarasandha, who was so undefeatable. that only he was killed by Bhima only because of Krishna's mercy. He gave the clue, he gave the strength, and that is why we could release all the kings captured by Jarasandha for his Mahabhairava Yagya. And it is only by Krishna's mercy, even Draupadi was saved in the assembly hall of Kauravas. We all were not able to save her, but it is only by Krishna's mercy that Draupadi was even saved that day. And that is, they disrespected Draupadi, they pulled the hair of Draupadi. That is the reason today all these wives of these Kauravas and other people, their wives are all, hairs are all loosened as widows. That is the reason, because of Krishna's protection for Draupadi. And he says, not just that, we all were saved from the anger of Durvasa during the exile. Because Duryodhan sent Durvasa for eating at a odd time when we didn't have any food. It is by Krishna's mercy, all of those Brahmins, sage and disciples of Durvasa and Durvasa himself were completely felt satisfied just because Krishna ate a small morsel. So that is only by Krishna's mercy we all were saved that day. And it is only by Krishna's mercy I received the Pashupatastra and I could fight and please him in my abilities to fight with him. And because of that, I received special weapons and I could even reach the heavenly planets in the same body, with the human body. And that is why I was engaged by the demigods for killing the Nivata Kavacha demons, but all this power and glory that I had, everything is gone today because I am bereft of that supreme person in my life today, by whose influence I was so powerful. And today he is gone, all my powers have also gone. And he says, once I fought all the Kaurava army alone and regained the cows of Virata during the exile. It was an ocean of Kaurava army. I could overcome all of them single-handedly by the mercy of Krishna. And then after that, I also was saved from the invincible weapons of great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Shalya, Bhurishrava. All of them could not harm me in the battlefield of Kurukshetra only by the mercy of Krishna. And more than that, when I was actually feeding water to my horses, I was without weapons. My enemies could have easily wounded me, easily killed me, but they were all illusion only by Krishna's power. And so that I could, right in the middle of the battlefield, I could actually take care of my horses. And he protected with his illusory power. Still, even though such a great personality, I witnessed his greatness, still foolishly I engaged him as my charioteer. So in this way, he remembers Krishna very fondly, and then he's counting. He's remembering all the frank talks that he had with Krishna, all the smiling exchanges and the hearty addresses he had with Krishna. He says he was like a father or a friend. He tolerated all my offenses during my intimate dealings with him. And today that he is not there, my heart is void. I was defeated by some simple infidels. I was trying to protect the wives of Krishna, but I could not. These infidels, they just defeated me. It's the same Gandiva bow, same arrows, chariot, horses. But today I don't have any power because all is null. All my power is null in a moment because of Krishna's absence. He says, all my power has become useless, like pouring ghee into ashes or making money by magic or sowing seeds on a barren land. Now that Yadus have also gone, he says, due to the curse of Brahmins, the Yadus got intoxicated, fought with each other, and killed each other. Except for four of them, all of them are gone. It is not Krishna. All the Yadus have also left this planet. So Vishnu Chakratakura explains at this point how Krishna wanted to show a lesson to the world how even if somebody is as powerful as Yadus, as close to Krishna as Yadus, like family members, but if they blaspheme or offend devotees like Narad Muni and the other Brahmins, they will be reduced to nothing. That is what he wanted to show, the seriousness of Vaishnava Aparad. That is also a reason for this way of ending the Yadus. And and also the pastime of the disappearance pastime of Krishna is very detailedly explained in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And here Arjuna focuses on the Lord's instructions so that his heart is now aggrieved so he can become composed. So he understands this is all Supreme Lord's will. It's only by Krishna's mercy that sometimes people kill or sometimes people protect us. He says Krishna used the stronger Yadus to kill the weaker Yadus. In this way, the burden of love of the Yadus he removed from the planet. He said, I'm going. I also want all my associates to come back with me. So he wanted to take all his associates, but his associates also had demigod portions mixed. So he wanted the demigod portions to go back to their duties and the personal associates to go back to the spiritual world. So in this way, he arranged all this. So, and Krishna remembers the instructions of Bhagavad Gita so that his burning heart is relieved, and he deeply contemplates so that his mind becomes pacified, and by his remembrance of Krishna his bhakti is intensified, and by his remembrance of the words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita his lamentation and doubts are destroyed. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, after he finally hears that Krishna has left this world, and he also remembers Bhagavad Gita, and he also decides to go back home, back to God. He wants to leave everything. And Kunti is also hearing Arjuna, so she also understands that Krishna is not here. So she absorbs herself fully in Krishna and leaves her body. And at this point, Suta Goswami is seeing all the Shaunakadi rishis are so morose. They are all so morose that the Yadu dynasty have killed each other. So they are feeling, how can that happen? How is so um, so bad? Like, why did that happen to Yadu? So they are so concerned. So Suta Goswami, just to pacify them, in short, he explains that Yadus didn't fight with each other. Krishna caused the Yadus to relinquish their bodies in this way for a certain reason. So that's much he says. Don't think Yadus fought with each other. It is Krishna who wanted that to happen. So he says, in short, he says this, and then he says, Krishna is like a magician. He can manifest bodies and he can apparently relinquish them. So he has all the power. So don't worry. Just continue to hear what I'm saying. So he says, Krishna then, the day Krishna left, Kali entered. So Yudhishthira Maharaj understood the influence of Kali and he thought it's time for me to leave home. So he installs Parikshit Maharaj as king. So here is the link. Because Narada Muni had told him, as long you can stay as long as the Lord stays in this material world. Now he understands the Supreme Lord has left, so he is also ready to leave. So that is the reason he installs Parikshit Maharaj as the king. For this point, Suta Goswami has explained chapter 13, 14, and now he is explaining 15 to emphasize this point that Parikshit Maharaj became a king at this point. And Yudhishthira Maharaj also installed Vajranabh as king in Mathura. And in this way, relinquishing all his royal garments and ornaments, he became fully renounced and goes to North to fully absorb in Krishna. Following Yudhishthira Maharaj, all the Pandavas, Draupadi, and everyone also absorb themselves because they have performed all the religious principles so far. They completely choose to focus on Lord's lotus feet without any other interruption. So, by their constant remembrance of the Supreme Lord, all the Pandavas, Draupadi, Subhadra, everyone achieve the spiritual world. Vidura leaves his body at Prabhasha Kshetra in Dwaraka and returns to his post in Putraloka, that is Yamaloka. And in this way, all of them reach back the spiritual world. So, Suta Goswami concludes this chapter by saying the Falashruti, the fruit of hearing this particular chapter with faith of this topic of departure of the sons of Pandu is fully auspicious. Don't think this is speaking about something inauspicious of leaving body. No, this is perfectly pure. This emphasizes the ultimate goal of life, how everyone, even great people who are kings and queens, they have to leave their world at one day. So in this way, by hearing this, one develops detachment. So this particular story is perfectly pure. And he says, anyone who hears with faith this narration of departure of the sons of Pandu, that person will gain devotion to Lord Hari. For he understands the futility of material existence, and in this way takes his devotion to Lord Hari seriously, how everybody has to focus at the end of their lives on Lord Krishna. For that, life is a preparation. So in this way, Suta Goswami completes this chapter. So anyone wants to ask any question? The rest of the chapters from 16, 17, 18, and 19 we will see last week, which is the last session for this overview of Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you all for joining. If anyone has any questions, we can take at this point.
Prabhuji, what is Sudharma Hall?
Sudharma Hall is the